On the day of my retirement as CEO, my daughter-in-law hosted a dinner. That should have been my first warning. Vanessa never hosted anything unless it benefited her directly, but I was tired. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. 40 years building Hartwell Industries from a two-person operation in a Boston strip mall into a $50 million enterprise. And I just wanted to sit down, have a glass of wine, and let someone else take over. George had been gone 8 months. The house was too quiet. The office was too full of memories. I signed the retirement papers on a Thursday and told Marcus we'd do something small. Just family. Vanessa had other plans. She rented the private dining room at Sorellina, the kind of place where they don't list prices on the menu and the waiters wear ties that cost more than my first car. 37 people showed up. Executives, board members, department heads, even Tom Brennan, our family attorney, who I'd known since Marcus was in diapers. Everyone in pressed suits and cocktail dresses, holding champagne flutes and laughing too loud. I wore the navy dress I bought for George's funeral. It still smelled like the dry cleaner's chemicals. Vanessa stood at the head of the table in a red dress cut low enough to make the older men uncomfortable. She tapped her glass with a knife. The room went quiet. "I want to propose a toast," she said. Her smile was wide and white. She'd gotten her teeth done last year. I paid for it. "To everyone here who makes Hartwell Industries the success it is today. To the people who show up, who innovate, who push us forward into the future." She raised her glass. Everyone raised theirs. I lifted mine halfway, confused. "And to Diana," Vanessa continued, turning to me, "who did the best thing she could possibly do by finally stepping aside. Let's be honest. It's time for the old guard to disappear. You've been holding us back long enough, you greedy hag." The room went silent. Not the good kind of silent. The kind where everyone's holding their breath, waiting to see if they heard correctly. I looked at Marcus, my son, my only child, the boy I carried for 9 months, the teenager I bailed out of trouble more times than I could count, the man whose Stanford education cost me $287,000, whose wedding to this woman cost another $120,000, whose 3-month stint in rehab at 25 cost $45,000 that our insurance wouldn't cover. Marcus laughed, not a nervous laugh, a real one. He threw his head back and laughed like Vanessa had just told the funniest joke he'd ever heard. Then he raised his glass higher and said, "Here, here." Tom Brennan cleared his throat and sipped his champagne. The woman from accounting stared at her plate. 2 of the board members exchanged glances, but nobody said a word. Nobody told Vanessa she'd crossed a line. Nobody told my son to apologize. They just sat there, 40 years of my life and my work reduced to a punchline, and they swallowed it down with Vanessa's expensive champagne. I smiled. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't know what else to do. Maybe because some part of me, the part that survived George's death, that survived building a company in the 1980s as a woman in a man's industry, that survived Marcus's addiction and his failures and his constant need for more, knew that showing weakness now would be the end of me. So I smiled, and I set down my glass, and I said very quietly, so only Vanessa could hear, "That's an interesting toast, Vanessa. Did you happen to read the papers you signed yesterday?" Her smile flickered, just for a second, just long enough for me to see the crack. "What papers?" she asked. "The ones Tom prepared," I said. I looked at Tom. He was sweating. "The transfer documents, for the company shares." Vanessa's face went pale. Not movie pale. Real pale. The kind where you can see the foundation clinging to the dry patches around her nose. "I signed those," she said. "Marcus and I both signed. You're transferring your 51% to us." "You agreed." "I agreed to sign papers," I said. "I didn't agree to what you thought they said." The room was still quiet, but now people were listening. I could feel it. Marcus was staring at me. His mouth was slightly open. He looked like a child caught stealing cookies, except he was 42 years old and had just laughed while his wife called me a greedy hag in front of everyone who mattered in my professional life. "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. I stood up. My knees hurt. They always hurt now. I was 68 years old, and I'd spent the last 8 months sleeping 4 hours a night, wondering if I'd made a mistake trusting my son with anything at all, wondering if George had been right when he said, 3 weeks before he died, "Diana, you need to protect yourself. Marcus isn't ready. And Vanessa." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "It means," I said, "that I signed the papers Tom gave me. A transfer of shares into an irrevocable trust, with very specific conditions." "What conditions?" Vanessa's voice was sharp now. The red dress didn't look so elegant anymore. It looked cheap. I picked up my purse. Black leather. George bought it for me on our 30th anniversary. I'd carried it to his funeral. "Ask Tom," I said. "He'll explain it. I'm sure he'll do a wonderful job, considering how much you've been paying him to handle things behind my back." I walked out. Nobody followed me. I took an Uber home, $34 including tip, and sat in the dark living room for 2 hours, staring at the spot where George used to sit in his recliner. He died of a heart attack in that chair, massive, gone before the ambulance arrived. I found him when I came home from the office. His coffee was still warm. The company we built together was worth $47 million, according to the last valuation. Marcus was vice president. Vanessa was director of marketing, a position she'd held for 9 years, ever since I made the mistake of hiring her because Marcus begged me to give her a chance. She had a degree from a mid-tier state school and a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords. In 9 years, she'd launched exactly 2 successful campaigns. Both of them were my ideas. I didn't sleep that night. At 6:47 a.m., my phone rang. "Marcus, Mom, what the hell did you do?" I could hear Vanessa yelling in the background. "I protected myself," I said. "Tom says you put the shares in a trust we can't touch. He says there are conditions. He says, Mom, this is insane. We're family." "Yes," I said. "We are." I hung up. The next call came at 7:12 a.m. "Tom Brennan." I let it go to voicemail. Then another at 7:34. Then 3 more before noon. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where George and I used to eat breakfast together every morning for 40 years. And I made a list of everything I'd given them, everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd paid for. Stanford, $287,000. Rehab, $45,000. Wedding, $120,000. Down payment on their house in Brookline, $180,000. Vanessa's car, a Tesla Model X, $98,000. Marcus's investment in a friend's startup that collapsed after 6 months, $150,000. The trip to Italy for their 10th anniversary, $22,000. I kept writing. The list went to 2 pages, then 3. By the time I finished, the total was $137,000. Over $1 million. And that didn't include the salary I'd been paying Marcus for the last 15 years, $240,000 a year, plus bonuses, for a job he barely showed up for half the time. At 3 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole. Vanessa, alone. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. No makeup. She looked younger without it. She looked like the girl Marcus brought home 13 years ago. The one who said, "Mrs. Hartwell, I just want you to know I'll take care of him." I almost believed her then. I opened the door. "We need to talk," Vanessa said. "No," I said. "We don't. Diana, please. Marcus is upset. He doesn't understand what you did. Neither do I. Can we sit down and figure this out?" "There's nothing to figure out," I said. "The shares are in a trust. The trust has conditions. If you want to know what they are, read the documents Tom gave you. He says you won't transfer them to us unless—" She stopped. Her jaw tightened. "Unless we meet certain requirements." "What requirements?" I almost told her. I almost explained that the trust was structured so that Marcus could only access his portion, 20%, not 51, if he stayed clean for 5 years, maintained employment outside of Hartwell Industries, and filed for divorce. That Vanessa would get nothing. That I'd spent 8 months planning this with a different attorney, one in New York who didn't play golf with my son and didn't owe Vanessa any favors. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, "You called me a greedy hag in front of 37 people, Vanessa. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? She stared at me. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. I thought I might see something human in her face. But then she smiled. That same wide, white smile from the restaurant. You're a bitter old woman, she said. George is dead. The company is ours now. And if you think some legal trick is going to stop us, you're wrong. We'll fight this. We'll take you to court. You'll lose, I said. And you'll spend every dollar you have trying. Now get off my porch. I closed the door. My hands were shaking. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain. Then I walked upstairs to the bedroom I'd shared with George for 43 years and sat on the edge of the bed. The room still smelled like him. Old Spice and coffee and the lavender soap I used to buy in bulk from Costco. I didn't cry. I'd cried enough after he died. I'd cried enough during Marcus's addiction, during the late nights when he'd call me from God knows where asking for money, for help, for one more chance. I'd cried enough during the years when George worked 70-hour weeks and I worked 80, when we ate ramen for dinner because every dollar went back into the business. When I had 3 miscarriages before Marcus finally made it to term, and I thought maybe, finally, we'd have the family we wanted. I was done crying. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mom, please, let's talk about this. I love you. I turned off my phone. Outside, the sun was setting. It was October. The leaves were turning. In 2 weeks, it would be George's birthday. He would have been 71. I'd already bought flowers for his grave. White roses. His favorite. I wondered if Vanessa would bring flowers too. I wondered if she'd write another smug little card. I wondered if Marcus would even notice. The letters started arriving on Tuesday. First one from Tom Brennan's office. Certified mail. I signed for it at 9:23 a.m. I'm standing in my bathrobe at the front door while the postal worker looked uncomfortable. Inside was a 10-page document titled, Motion to Contest Trust Formation, Hartwell Family Estate. Legal language I mostly understood after 40 years in business. Tom was arguing that I'd been mentally compromised when I signed the trust documents, that I was grieving and therefore not of sound mind, that the trust should be dissolved and the shares transferred as originally agreed upon by all parties. I called my bank, asked them to send me copies of every document I'd signed in the last 6 months. They arrived by email 2 hours later. I opened the PDFs on George's old laptop. I still couldn't bring myself to move it from his desk and started going through them line by line. Page 47. A wire transfer authorization for $340,000 from the company operating account to an LLC I'd never heard of. Lighthouse Capital Management. Dated July 18th, 3 months ago. My signature at the bottom. Except it wasn't my signature. Close. Very close. But the loop on the D was wrong. I've been signing my name the same way since I was 16 years old. Whoever forged this had practiced, but they'd missed the small backward hook I always do at the end of Hartwell. I kept looking. Page 62. Another transfer. $180,000. Same LLC. August 3rd. Page 79. $95,000. August 29th. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set down my coffee. I'd spilled some on the desk. George's desk. There was a water ring on the wood that had been there since 2003 when Marcus, drunk at 19, set down a beer bottle and forgot it overnight. George never sanded it out. Said it reminded him that mistakes leave marks. Total, $615,000. Gone. Forged signatures. My checking account, the one tied to the company, the one I'd set up in 1985 with $12,000 in savings and a prayer, had been drained while I was planning my husband's funeral. The phone rang. Tom Brennan. I answered. Diana, we need to meet. This trust situation is untenable. Marcus and Vanessa are willing to be reasonable, but you need to— Did you know? I asked. Silence. Did you know they were forging my signature on bank transfers? More silence. Then, Diana, I don't know what you're talking about. Lighthouse Capital Management. Ring a bell? I heard him exhale. That's a legitimate business entity. Vanessa established it for tax purposes, all above board. With my forged signature authorizing transfers? Your signature is on file at the bank. If there was a transfer, it was authorized. Now, about this trust. I'm going to hang up now, Tom. And when I call you again, it'll be to fire you as family counsel. 43 years. You held Marcus at his baptism, and you're helping them rob me. Diana, you're being paranoid. Grief can do that. Let me send over some names of therapists who... I hung up. At 4:00 p.m., Marcus showed up. No Vanessa this time. He looked terrible. Unshaved, wrinkled shirt, eyes red like he'd been crying or drinking or both. He stood on the porch holding a folder. Mom, please, just look at these. I didn't open the door. Talked through the screen. What are they? Transfer papers. Clean ones. No trust, no conditions. You sign these, everything goes back to normal. 51% to me and Vanessa. You keep a small percentage for income. Everyone's happy. Everyone except me. Mom, come on. You can't run the company anymore anyway. You're retired. What do you need the shares for? I built that company, Marcus. 40 years. And now it's my turn. His voice cracked. Dad wanted me to take over. He told me. He said, your father said a lot of things. He also said you weren't ready. He said Vanessa was dangerous. He said I needed to protect myself. Marcus's face went white. He didn't say that. 3 weeks before he died, sitting in that chair right behind you. His exact words, Diana, you need to protect yourself. Marcus isn't ready. And Vanessa, he didn't finish. But I knew what he meant. You're lying. I'm not. He stared at me. His jaw was clenched. He looked like George when he was angry. Same tight mouth, same flared nostrils. But George's anger was controlled. Marcus's was desperate. Sign the papers, Mom. No. Sign them or I'll... He stopped. You'll what? He turned around and walked back to his car. A BMW, $73,000. I'd co-signed the loan 2 years ago when his credit was still shot from the addiction days. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2:37 a.m., I got out of bed and went to George's office. Started going through his files. He'd kept everything, every contract, every receipt, every scrap of paper related to the business. Boxes and boxes in the closet. In the third box, I found a manila folder labeled Legal Confidential. Inside were printouts of emails between Tom Brennan and Vanessa, dated from March through June of this year, after George died but before I signed the trust. March 24th. Tom, Diana's a mess. Can we move forward with the competency evaluation you mentioned? April 8th. The doctor I referred you to is very reliable. He'll testify if needed. May 12th. We should consider a facility. Somewhere nice. She'll be comfortable and we can finalize everything without her interference. June 3rd. How long does commitment take in Massachusetts? Do we need 2 doctors or just 1? I read them 3 times. Then I threw up in George's wastebasket. They were planning to have me declared incompetent, to commit me, to put me in a facility so they could take the company without the messy business of dealing with me. And Tom, who'd been our attorney since 1982, who'd drawn up our wills, who'd handled Marcus's legal trouble when he got his second DUI, who'd sat in our living room drinking George's scotch and laughing at his jokes. Tom was helping them. I took pictures of every email with my phone. Then I put the folder back exactly where I found it, at 7:00 a.m. I called a number I'd found in George's contacts, a man named Ray Mitchell, private investigator. George had used him twice, once when we thought an employee was stealing, once when we needed background checks on a potential partner. Mrs. Hartwell, Ray said when I told him who I was. I'm so sorry about George. Hell of a man. I need your help, I said. What kind of help? The kind where I find out exactly what my daughter-in-law has been doing with my money. Silence. Then, when can we meet? Today. We met at a diner in Somerville. Ray was 60, gray beard, wedding ring, kind eyes. I showed him everything, the forged signatures, the emails about committing me, the transfers to Lighthouse Capital. He took notes, drank coffee, finally said, Mrs. Hartwell, this is financial elder abuse and conspiracy. You could go to the police right now. I don't want police, I said. I want information. I want to know every dollar they've taken, every lie they've told, every person who's helping them. Can you do that? He looked at me for a long moment. Yes, but it'll take time. and it won't be cheap. I have time, I said. And money isn't the problem. He nodded. I'll call you in 72 hours. I drove home. Sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. The house felt different now, smaller, like the walls were closing in. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Mom, Tom says you have until Friday to sign the transfer or we're filing a competency petition. Please don't make us do this. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Do what you need to do, Marcus. So will I. I hit send. Outside, it started to rain. Thursday morning, I drove to Mount Auburn Cemetery. George was buried in Section 12, under a maple tree that turned bright red every October. I'd picked the spot because he used to say he wanted to be somewhere with a view. The cemetery overlooked the Cambridge Reservoir. On clear days, you could see the water. It wasn't a clear day. I parked in the small lot and walked the gravel path. My knees hurt. They always hurt now, especially in the cold. It was 53 degrees and gray. The kind of gray that makes everything look washed out, like an old photograph. George's headstone was simple. Black granite, his name, his dates, and the words, beloved husband and father. Marcus picked those words. I wanted something else, builder, maybe, or partner. But Marcus insisted, and I was too tired to fight. That was 3 days after the funeral. I hadn't slept in 72 hours. I signed off on everything he wanted. I stood there looking at the stone. Someone had left flowers, fresh ones, white roses in a clear vase, the expensive kind from that boutique shop on Newberry Street. They were tied with a cream-colored ribbon. I bent down, my knees screaming, and picked up the small card tucked into the bouquet. Obrigada por tudo, sogro. Agora é nossa vez. Viva Vanessa's handwriting. I recognized it from the birthday cards she used to give me, back when she was still pretending to care. The Portuguese word, obrigada, was meant to be clever, I guess. Vanessa's mother was Brazilian. She liked to sprinkle Portuguese into conversations to seem cultured. I read the card 3 times. Then I took the flowers out of the vase, walked to the trash can by the parking lot, and threw them away. I kept the card. Back in the car, I sat with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. George used to say I was the strongest person he knew, that I could handle anything. He said it the night Marcus overdosed the first time, when I was in the hospital waiting room at 3 a.m., shaking so hard I couldn't hold a coffee cup. George held my hands and said, You're going to get through this, Diana. You always do. I didn't feel strong now. I felt old. 68, widow, no company, no son, not really. Marcus had chosen his side. He'd chosen Vanessa, chosen the money, chosen the lie that I was some bitter old woman trying to control them from beyond my relevance. Maybe I was. I drove home and didn't leave the house for 3 days. Saturday, I sat in the living room and looked at photo albums. Our wedding, George in a rented tux that didn't fit right. Me in my mother's dress, altered to make it work. We got married at City Hall because we couldn't afford a real ceremony. We were 26 and 24. We had $400 between us. By our first anniversary, we had the business. By our 10th, we had Marcus. Pictures of Marcus as a baby. Fat cheeks, huge eyes, always smiling. George holding him on his first birthday. Me holding him on his first day of school. Marcus in his Little League uniform. Marcus at his high school graduation. Marcus at Stanford, standing in front of the fountain with his diploma. That degree cost more than our first house. I kept flipping. Marcus at 25, thin and hollow-eyed. The photo from his rehab intake. I'd kept it to remind myself how close we'd come to losing him. George wanted to throw it away, said it hurt too much to look at, but I kept it. 30 days in that place, then 60, then 90. He came out different, quieter, said he was grateful, said he'd never forget what we did for him. Last page of the album, Marcus and Vanessa's wedding. Her in white, him in a gray suit. Both of them smiling. Me and George on either side, arms around them. We looked happy. We weren't. George had pulled me aside the night before and said, It's not too late. We can talk to him. But I said no. Said Marcus loved her. Said we had to let him make his own choices. I closed the album. Sunday, I didn't get out of bed until 2 p.m. Ate crackers for lunch. Watched the light move across the bedroom ceiling. Thought about calling someone. But who? My sister lived in Arizona and we hadn't spoken in 6 years, not since she told me I was enabling Marcus. My friends, the few I had left after 40 years of working 80-hour weeks, had drifted away after George died. People don't know what to say to widows. They send casseroles for 2 weeks and then they disappear. Monday, Ray Mitchell called. "Mrs. Hartwell, I've got preliminary findings. You'll want to sit down." I was already sitting, at the kitchen table. Same spot where I'd eaten breakfast with George for 40 years. Same crack in the vinyl of the chair he used to sit in. "Go ahead," I said. "Lighthouse Capital Management is a shell LLC registered in Delaware. Sole owner, Vanessa Hartwell. It was created in March of this year, 1 week after your husband passed. Since then, there have been 23 transfers from Hartwell Industries accounts to Lighthouse. Total, $2, $3 million. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. "Mrs. Hartwell? I'm here. There's more. The money moved from Lighthouse to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. From there, it split into 3 different accounts. I can't access those records without a subpoena, but I have a contact who can tell me who controls them. It'll take another week, maybe 2. "Do it," I said. "It's expensive. International records, off-book inquiries. We're talking another $15,000 on top of what I've already billed. I don't care. Find everything. Understood. One more thing. I looked into Tom Brennan. He's got a new client as of April. Guess who? Vanessa. Correct. She's paying him through Lighthouse Capital, $8,000 a month retainer. He's not your family attorney anymore, Mrs. Hartwell. He's hers." I thanked him and hung up. $2, $3 million, gone. While I was burying my husband, while I was signing papers I thought were routine, while I was trying to figure out how to live alone in a house that felt like a museum, Vanessa was robbing me blind. And Marcus, did he know? The text he'd sent. "Tom says you have until Friday to sign the transfer or we're filing a competency petition," kept replaying in my head. Tom says, not, "We've decided," or "I've talked to Vanessa." Tom says, like Marcus was just following orders. Like he didn't have a brain in his head. Maybe he didn't. Maybe that was my fault too. I'd fixed every problem he'd ever had, paid for every mistake, bailed him out, cleaned him up, sent him to the best schools and the best clinics and given him a job he didn't earn. And now he thought he was entitled to everything I'd built. I walked upstairs to George's office, opened the closet, pulled out the box with the legal files, found the folder marked Trusts and Estate Planning, Final. Inside were the real documents, the ones the New York attorney had prepared, the irrevocable trust that transferred my 51% into a protected entity. The conditions were clear. Marcus could access his 20% only after 5 years of sobriety, verified employment outside Hartwell Industries, and, this was the part George had insisted on, dissolution of his marriage to Vanessa. Vanessa got nothing. The company itself would be held in trust until I decided to sell, or until my death, at which point Marcus could buy it back at fair market value if he met all conditions. If he didn't, it would be sold and the proceeds donated to the rehab facility that saved his life 15 years ago. George had written a note in the margin of the final page. Blue ink, his messy handwriting. "She'll destroy him if we don't stop her. Protect Marcus from himself." I sat on the floor of George's office and cried for the first time since the cemetery. Not quiet crying. Ugly, loud, choking sobs that hurt my chest and made my nose run. I cried for George, for Marcus, for 40 years of building something that was being stolen by a woman who thought leaving flowers on my husband's grave was a power move. When I stopped, it was dark outside. 8:47 p.m. I was still sitting on the floor. My phone was ringing. Ray Mitchell. "I found something else," he said. "You're going to want to move fast." "What is it?" "Vanessa's filed paperwork to dissolve Hartwell Industries and reincorporate under a new name. Lighthouse Industries, LLC. If that goes through, she controls everything. Your shares become worthless." "When?" "Filing date is next Monday. You've got 6 days." I stood up. My knees didn't hurt anymore. Maybe they did, and I just stopped caring. "Ray," I said, "I need you to do something for me. Name it. I need records. Everything. Every transfer, every email, every document that proves what she's done. And I need it in 72 hours. That's tight. Can you do it? Pause. Then, yes. Good. Because I'm done playing defense, I hung up and walked downstairs. Made coffee. Sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and started writing. Not a list this time. A plan. Ray delivered on Wednesday. A manila envelope, thick as a phone book, left on my doorstep at 6 a.m. I watched him drive away from the living room window. He didn't knock. Didn't need to. I'd been awake since 4:30. Inside, bank statements, wire transfer receipts, incorporation documents, screenshots of emails between Vanessa and 3 different offshore banking contacts, copies of Tom Brennan's retainer agreement with Lighthouse Capital, a timeline Ray had built showing 23 separate transfers between March and October, and a summary page, single-spaced, that laid it all out. $2,347,600 total. Moved in chunks small enough not to trigger automatic fraud alerts, $180,000 here, $95,000 there, but large enough to drain the company reserves George and I had spent 4 decades building. The Cayman account was in Vanessa's name only. Not joint with Marcus, just hers. I made coffee and read everything twice. Then I called my New York attorney, Rebecca Chen. 52, sharp as a knife, didn't waste words. Diana, tell me, I told her. Took 11 minutes. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she said, "You want to file criminal charges?" "No. Why not?" "Because Marcus will be implicated. They're married, joint accounts, joint taxes. If she goes down, he goes down. I need him clean." Silence. Then, "You're protecting him. I'm protecting what's left. All right? Then here's what we do. First, we finalize the trust transfer today. Not next week. Today. I'll file emergency paperwork in New York citing attempted corporate dissolution and fraud. We get a judge to freeze all Hartwell assets until the trust is validated. That buys us time. How much time? 30 days minimum. 60 if we're lucky. Vanessa can't touch anything while it's in litigation. What about the offshore account? That's trickier. We can't freeze money in the Caymans without international cooperation, and that takes months. But, she paused. We can report it. To who? IRS. Anonymous tip. Offshore account, unreported income, possible tax evasion. They'll audit her, freeze her domestic accounts while they investigate. It won't get your money back immediately, but it'll destroy her financially until she can prove the funds were legitimate. How long does an audit take? 18 months on average. Could be longer if they find what I think they'll find. I smiled. First time in weeks. Do it. Diana, you understand this will hurt Marcus too. Joint accounts. Joint. Marcus has his own money. Salary I've been paying him for 15 years. If he's been smart, he's saved some. If he hasn't, that's his problem. All right. I'll need you to overnight these documents to me today. FedEx, signature required. And Diana? Yes? Don't tell anyone. Not Marcus, not Tom, nobody. The second Vanessa knows what's coming, she'll move the money again. Understood. I hung up and started scanning documents. Took 3 hours. By 11 a.m., everything was uploaded to Rebecca's secure server. By 1 p.m., I'd driven to FedEx and sent the physical copies overnight to her Manhattan office. Cost $87, worth every penny. Thursday, I heard nothing. Spent the day cleaning George's office. Threw away files we didn't need anymore. Kept the ones that mattered. Found a photo of Marcus at 8 years old, gap-toothed, holding a trophy from his soccer league. We'd gone out for ice cream after. George got mint chip. Marcus got chocolate. I got nothing because I was on a diet that didn't work. We were happy that day. I put the photo in my wallet. Friday morning at 9:47 a.m., Rebecca called. It's done. Trust is validated, assets frozen, IRS report filed. She'll get the audit letter in 3 to 5 business days. What about the dissolution paperwork? Blocked. Judge ruled in our favor. Hartwell Industries remains intact under trust management until further notice. Vanessa's filing is void. And Marcus? He'll figure it out when he tries to access company accounts. Everything's locked except operational expenses, and those require dual authorization from the trust administrator. That's you. And 1 independent board member. Tom Brennan is no longer authorized. Good. Diana, be ready. When this hits, it's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. I hung up and waited. The call came at 2:15 p.m. Marcus. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Mom, what the hell did you do? His voice was shaking. I just got a call from the bank. All the accounts are frozen. They're saying there's a court order. They're saying, Mom, they're saying you filed fraud allegations. I filed to protect the company. From what? From Vanessa. Silence. Long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then, what are you talking about? Ask your wife where $3 million went, Marcus. What? Ask her about Lighthouse Capital. Ask her about the Cayman Islands. Ask her why she's been stealing from the company since your father died. You're insane. I have bank records, wire transfers, emails, all of it. Do you want me to send them to you? Or do you want to ask Vanessa yourself? He hung up. I sat at the kitchen table and waited. Wondered if he'd call back. Wondered if he'd believe me. Wondered if it even mattered anymore. At 6:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. You're going to regret this, you bitter bitch. Vanessa. She'd gotten a new number. Probably a burner. I didn't reply. Just took a screenshot and forwarded it to Rebecca with a note. Evidence of harassment. Saturday morning I was making coffee when I heard a car in the driveway. Looked out the window. Vanessa's Tesla. She got out, slammed the door, marched up to the porch. She was holding an envelope. I opened the door before she could knock. You did this, she said. Her makeup was smudged. She'd been crying. Good. Did what? She shoved the envelope at me. IRS letterhead. Official seal. I didn't need to read it. I knew what it said. They're auditing me. Freezing my accounts. They're saying I owe back taxes on unreported income. This is you. You reported me. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar! She was screaming now. Loud enough that the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Patterson, 74, widowed, nosy, opened her front door to watch. You think you can destroy me? You think you can ruin my life because you're jealous that Marcus chose me over you? Marcus didn't choose you, I said quietly. You manipulated him, and you stole from me. $2, $3 million, Vanessa. That's not jealousy. That's theft. Her face went white, not pale. White, like every drop of blood drained out. I don't know what you're talking about. Lighthouse Capital, Cayman Islands, 23 wire transfers. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to leave my property before I call the police? She stared at me. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. Then she turned and ran back to her car. Literally ran. Stumbled on the steps. Caught herself. Kept going. Tires squealing as she backed out of the driveway. Mrs. Patterson was still watching. I waved at her. She waved back and went inside. I closed the door and sat down on the couch. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From something else. Something that felt like power. Like control. Like maybe, for the first time since George died, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back. My phone rang. Marcus. Mom. His voice was different now. Quiet. Broken. Vanessa just told me. About the money. She said it was for us. For our future. She said you were going to cut me out and she was protecting me. Do you believe her? Long pause. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then look at the evidence, Marcus. I'll send you everything. Bank records, emails, all of it. Read it. Then decide who you believe. I hung up before he could respond. Outside, the sun was setting. Orange and pink and purple. The kind of sunset George used to love. I wished he were here. Wished I could tell him what I'd done. Wished I could hear him say, "That's my girl." But he wasn't here, and I was alone. And somehow, that was okay. Marcus showed up Sunday afternoon. No warning. I was in the kitchen making soup. Chicken noodle, from scratch, the way George used to like it. When I heard his car. Different car, not the BMW. A rental. Gray Camry. He looked terrible. Unshaved. Same clothes as yesterday. Eyes swollen. He was holding a folder. The one I'd sent him via email Friday night. He'd printed everything. 247 pages of bank records, wire transfers, emails between Vanessa and Tom, screenshots of the Cayman account, I turned off the stove and let him in. I read it, he said. All of it. 3 times. We sat at the kitchen table. Same table where I'd made my lists, where I'd cried over George's note, where I'd planned how to take back what was mine. Marcus set the folder down between us like it was evidence in a trial. Maybe it was. Mom, I didn't know. His voice cracked. I swear to God I didn't know about the offshore account. I didn't know about the $2.3 million. I thought... Vanessa said we were just reorganizing company finances. She said you were being difficult about the transition and Tom was helping us streamline things. And you believed her? Yes. He looked at his hands. She said you were trying to control me. That you'd never let me run the company because you didn't trust me. She said Dad told her before he died that he wanted me to take over, but you were blocking it. Your father never said that. I know that now. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I read the emails, Mom. The ones about having you committed. About finding a doctor who'd testify you were incompetent. About putting you in a facility. Did you know about those? He shook his head, tears running down his face now. 42 years old, crying like he did when he was 8 and fell off his bike and broke his wrist. No, I swear. Tom told me we were just getting a medical evaluation to help with the estate planning. He said it was routine. I didn't know. I didn't know they were trying to lock you up. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But I'd wanted to believe a lot of things about Marcus over the years. That the rehab would stick. That he'd learned his lesson. That marrying Vanessa would settle him down. Why did you laugh? I asked. What? At the restaurant. When Vanessa called me a greedy hag. You laughed, Marcus. You threw your head back and laughed. He closed his eyes. Because I'm weak. Because Vanessa was watching me and I knew if I didn't laugh, if I defended you, she'd make my life hell at home. She'd withhold sex, give me the silent treatment for days, tell me I was choosing my mommy over my wife. And I was tired, Mom. I was so tired of fighting with her. So you chose her? Yes. He opened his eyes. They were red and empty. And I was wrong. I've been wrong about everything. She used me. She played me. She made me think you were the enemy when you were the only person who ever actually gave a damn about me. He put his head down on the table and sobbed. Real, ugly, choking sobs. The kind that come from somewhere deep, somewhere you can't fake. I reached across and put my hand on his shoulder, felt how thin he'd gotten. He'd lost weight, probably wasn't eating, probably wasn't sleeping. Marcus, I said quietly, did Vanessa steal that money alone, or did you help? He lifted his head. I signed some documents, authorizations for transfers. But she told me they were for operating expenses, for payroll, for vendor payments. I didn't look closely. I trusted her. She handled all the finances at home. I just signed where she told me to sign. Do you have copies of what you signed? No. She always took the papers with her. Said she'd file them. Of course she did. Vanessa was smart. Evil, but smart. She'd set it up so Marcus's signatures were on just enough documents to implicate him if things went south, but not enough for him to understand what was really happening. Classic manipulation. Mom, what do I do? His voice was small, childlike. My accounts are frozen too, not just hers. Mine. I can't access anything. I tried to buy groceries yesterday and my card was declined. I have $140 in cash. That's it. Where are you staying? Hotel. The Marriott in Cambridge. Vanessa kicked me out Friday night after you sent the documents. Said if I was going to side with you, I could leave. So I left. Good. Good? Mom, I have nothing. No money, no access to the house, no. You have me, I said. If you want. He stared at me. After everything I did, after I laughed at you, chose her over you, let them try to destroy you, you'd still help me? You're my son, Marcus. That doesn't change. He started crying again. I got up, poured him water, set it in front of him. He drank it like he'd been wandering in a desert. I need you to do something for me, I said. Anything. I need you to testify. Against Vanessa. Against Tom. In front of the board. Tell them everything you told me. Tell them how she manipulated you. How Tom lied. How they planned this behind my back. His face went pale. If I do that, she'll... Mom, she'll destroy me. She'll tell everyone I was involved. She'll say I knew about the money. It'll be my word against hers. It'll be your word, my word, and 247 pages of evidence against hers. Who do you think the board will believe?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "When?" "Tuesday, emergency board meeting, 10 a.m. That's 2 days." "Yes." "What if I can't do it? What if I freeze up or she talks me out of it or—" "Then you'll lose me," I said. Simple as that. "You'll lose the company, you'll lose your inheritance, and you'll lose me. Because, Marcus, I love you. But I won't let you drag me down with her. You have to choose. Right now, her or me." He looked at me. Really looked at me. Like he was seeing me for the first time in years. "You," he said. "I choose you, Mom. I'm sorry it took me so long." I nodded. "Go back to your hotel. Don't talk to Vanessa. Don't answer her calls. Show up Tuesday at 9:45. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good." He stood up, awkward, like he wanted to hug me but didn't know if he was allowed. I stood too, opened my arms. He fell into them like a child. 6'2", 180 pounds, crying into my shoulder like he used to when he had nightmares at age 7. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said. "I know." I walked him to the door. He got in his rental car and drove away. I watched until he turned the corner. Then I went back inside and finished making soup. At 7:15 p.m., my phone rang. "Vanessa, you turned him against me." Her voice was ice. "You manipulated him. You're poisoning him against his own wife." I showed him the truth. "He's weak. He'll do whatever you say. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I've got lawyers. Real ones. Not some New York bitch who thinks she can freeze my money. I'm going to bury you, Diana. I'm going to take everything. The company, the house, every dollar you have. And when I'm done, you'll have nothing. We'll see," I said. "Tuesday at the board meeting? I'll be there. And I'll have proof that you've been embezzling for years. That you've been hiding money. That you're the real thief." "What proof?" She laughed. "You'll see." She hung up. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone. She was bluffing. She had to be. But a small part of me wondered, what if she wasn't? What if she'd been planning this longer than I thought? What if she had something I didn't know about? I called Rebecca. "Diana?" "Vanessa says she has proof I've been embezzling, that she's going to present it at the board meeting." Silence. Then, "That's impossible. Unless what? Unless she falsified documents, which, given everything else, wouldn't surprise me. I'll prepare a countermotion. If she tries anything, we'll bury her in contempt charges." "Good. Diana, don't let her rattle you. She's desperate. Desperate people make mistakes." "I hope you're right." I hung up and sat in the dark. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Patterson's dog barking, a car driving by. Normal sounds, normal life. Nothing felt normal anymore. Tuesday morning, 9:42 a.m. I arrived at the Hartwell Industries building for the first time since my retirement dinner. The lobby still smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and the expensive coffee from the machine on the 3rd floor. 40 years I'd walked through those doors. Today might be the last time. Marcus was already there, sitting in the waiting area outside the boardroom, hands clasped between his knees, staring at the floor. He looked up when I came in. His eyes were clear, sober, scared, but clear. "Mom, you ready?" "No, but I'll do it anyway." I sat next to him. "She's going to say terrible things about you, about me, about your father. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't care anymore." He looked at me. "I spent 15 years letting her tell me who I was, who you were. I'm done." At 9:53, Vanessa arrived. Tom Brennan beside her carrying a briefcase. She was wearing a black suit, hair pulled back, makeup perfect. She looked like she was ready for a corporate photo shoot. She saw us and smiled. Not a friendly smile, a predator's smile. "Diana, Marcus." She nodded. "This should be interesting." The boardroom door opened. 6 members filed in. Rebecca Chen was already seated at the far end, laptop open, legal pads stacked beside her. She caught my eye and gave a slight nod. We all took our seats. Diana and Marcus on one side, Vanessa and Tom on the other, the board at the head of the table. Sarah Fleming, board chair, looked exhausted. She was 71, had known George since the 1980s, had been on the board for 32 years. "Let's begin," Sarah said. This emergency meeting was called to address allegations of financial misconduct and corporate malfeasance. "Diana, you have the floor." I stood, opened the folder Rebecca had prepared. Over the past 8 months, $2,347,600 has been illegally transferred from Hartwell Industries accounts to an offshore entity controlled by Vanessa Hartwell. I have documentation of 23 separate wire transfers, falsified authorizations using forged signatures, and correspondence between Vanessa and our former family attorney, Tom Brennan, outlining a scheme to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized. Vanessa didn't flinch. "That's a lie. I have proof." I slid copies of the documents across the table. Bank statements, screenshots, emails. The board members started reading. Tom's face went pale. Vanessa stayed frozen. "These are fabricated," Vanessa said. "Diana has been unstable since George died. She's invented this entire narrative because she can't accept that Marcus is ready to lead this company." "Then explain the Cayman Islands account in your name," Rebecca said. "Sole signatory. Opened March 15th, 1 week after George Hartwell's death." "I don't have to explain anything to you." "Actually, you do," Sarah said quietly. "These are serious allegations." Vanessa stood up, opened her own briefcase, pulled out a stack of papers. "You want proof? Here's proof. Wire transfers from Diana's personal account to a consulting firm that doesn't exist. $450,000 over 3 years. She's been embezzling and blaming me to cover her tracks." She slid the papers across. I glanced at them. "Transfers to Hartwell Consulting Group, LLC. My signature at the bottom of each authorization." "Those are fake," I said. "Are they?" Vanessa smiled. "Or did you create a shell company years ago and forget about it?" "You're 68, Diana. Grief does things to memory." Marcus stood up. His chair scraped loud against the floor. "She's lying." Everyone looked at him. "Vanessa forged those documents, just like she forged Mom's signature on the transfers to Lighthouse Capital. I know because I watched her practice Mom's signature for 2 weeks last spring. She had samples from old contracts. She'd sit at the kitchen table at night and trace them over and over until she got it right." Vanessa's face changed. The smile disappeared. "Marcus, sit down." "No." His voice was shaking but steady. "I'm done protecting you. I'm done lying. You used me. You manipulated me. You made me think my mother was the enemy when you were stealing from her the whole time." "You signed the transfers too," Vanessa hissed. "Your signature is on half those documents. If I go down, you go down." "I know." He looked at the board. "I signed documents I didn't read because my wife told me they were routine. I was negligent. I was stupid. And I'm sorry. But I didn't steal. She did." The room went silent. Sarah looked at Tom. "Mr. Brennan, do you have anything to add?" Tom opened his mouth, closed it. I was retained by Mrs. Vanessa Hartwell as independent counsel. My communications with her were privileged." "Privileged communication doesn't cover conspiracy to commit fraud," Rebecca said. "Or elder abuse. The Massachusetts Bar Association will be very interested in your emails about having Diana committed." Tom's briefcase fell off the table. Papers scattered. Nobody moved to help him pick them up. Sarah looked at the board members. "All in favor of terminating Vanessa Hartwell's employment and removing Thomas Brennan as corporate counsel, raise your hand." 6 hands went up, unanimous. "Motion carries." Sarah looked at Vanessa. "You're done. Security will escort you out. You have 1 hour to remove personal items from your office." Vanessa stood up, looked at Marcus. "You're pathetic. You'll always be pathetic. Your father knew it. That's why he never trusted you with anything." Marcus didn't respond, just looked at her until she turned and walked out. Tom followed, leaving his scattered papers on the floor. When the door closed, I sat down. My hands were shaking. "There's one more thing," I said. "I've decided to sell the company." The board members looked shocked. Sarah leaned forward. "Diana, you don't have to." "I do. I've already had preliminary discussions with Kellerman Industries. They've offered $47 million. The sale will close in 90 days. All employees retain their positions. The board will be dissolved after transition. What about Marcus? Sarah asked. Marcus will receive 20% of the proceeds, $9, $4 million, held in trust. He can access it after 5 years of verified sobriety, stable employment outside this company, and completion of a financial management course. Until then, it stays locked. I looked at Marcus. He nodded slowly. That's fair. And Vanessa? Someone asked. Vanessa gets nothing, and divorce papers, which Marcus will file by end of week. Marcus nodded again. Already scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. The meeting ended at 11:47 a.m. The board filed out quietly. Rebecca packed her laptop. Marcus waited by the door. Thank you, he said when we were alone. For not giving up on me. Don't thank me yet. You have 5 years to prove you've changed. I will. I promise. We'll see. 3 weeks later, I moved to Cape Cod. George had left me a small house in Truro, right on the water, white paint, blue shutters, a porch that faced the ocean. We'd bought it in 1996, planned to retire there together. Now I'd retire there alone. I spent my days reading, walking the beach, learning how to be still. The sale of Hartwell Industries closed on December 18th. $47 million wired to the trust account. $6 million to me after Marcus's share was set aside. More money than I'd ever need. I donated $5 million to the rehab facility that saved Marcus's life. Set up a scholarship fund at Stanford for first-generation college students. Gave $500,000 to the cemetery where George was buried to maintain the grounds in perpetuity. The rest I kept, because I'd earned it. On January 9th, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the window. Marcus, alone. No Vanessa. No rental car. Just him, in jeans and a jacket, holding a small bag. I opened the door. Hi, Mom. Marcus. I filed the divorce papers. Vanessa signed them last week. It's done. Good. And I got a job. At a nonprofit in Cambridge. Financial planning for low-income families. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work. That's good, too. He shifted his weight, looked at the ocean. I was hoping, I don't know, maybe I could come visit sometimes. Not to ask for anything, just to try to fix what I broke. I looked at him, my son, 42 years old, finally standing on his own. We'll see, Marcus, I said. We'll see. He nodded, smiled a little. That's more than I deserve. Yes, I said. It is. He got back in his car, a used Honda I noticed, not a BMW, and drove away. I watched until he disappeared down the coastal road. Then I went inside, made tea, and sat on the porch watching the waves. The sun was setting. Orange and pink, just like George used to love. Maybe things would be okay. Maybe they wouldn't. But for the first time in a long time, I had hope. If you've experienced something similar, family betrayal, silent manipulation, a fight for respect, comment below and tell us what you would do in Diana's shoes. And if you'd like to share your own story, send it to the channel. Sometimes telling what happened is the first step to recovering what was stolen. Would you give Marcus a second chance? Or are some mistakes irreversible?